and welcome to RSA Conference's Cyber Ops. We are very happy that you are all here today and enjoying the cool space, the hangout space. And I am very, very privileged to introduce a couple friends of mine who I think are absolutely amazing people and individuals and are so generous to come here and to play with all of you. So I'm excited to see you sitting down here. I'm excited to see the kind of response that they always get. And so I'd like to introduce John Strand and Jason Blanchard from Black Hills Information Security, BHIS.
Thank you, Cecilia.
All right, thank you so much.
Hello, everybody. Hey, raise your hand if you've ever played Backdoors and Breaches. All right, cool. So we got some people in here. So I would assume everyone who didn't raise their hand either doesn't like audience participation or you've never played Backdoors and Breaches. So we want to let you know that this is an interactive session. The more interactive you are, the more fun it is for all of us. And so if you can be as interactive as you possibly can, that would be great. And that will include a lot of hand raising today, because hand raising lets me know that you are actually paying attention. For the last 4 years, I've been streaming online, and so actually seeing human beings reacting in person brings me so much joy, I'm about to cry, okay? So my name is Jason Blanchard. This is John Strand. We are the co-creators of Backdoors and Breaches. This is a game that is an incident response card game that has helped thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of people around the world learn about cybersecurity and do tabletop exercises. So, John, what are we doing here today?
So we created this game because, to be quite honest, tabletop exercises are awful. Whenever you do a tabletop exercise at a company or you bring in an external consultant, by the way, we do that for free. If you're interested, just hit us up. We're happy to do a Backdoors and Breaches session with your company. But they come in, and many times they have these really crazy unicorn scenarios. Like, you know, just imagine if someone hypothetically broke into our Cisco or Avanti or our ConnectWise software or our...
John, careful. Remember where we are. Just remember where we are.
Oh, some hypothetical vendor that may have vulnerabilities that maybe could be exploited. Yeah, all right, so imagine you have a scenario and you say that this company gets exploited, or you say that malware gets installed on a workstation, and almost inevitably it turns into an argument of, well, no, there's no possible way that we could be exploited because we use this vendor for EDR, and I was just in the airport in San Francisco, and there was a great big sign that said they have a zero false positive guarantee, and they stop all cyber attacks. So your scenario is completely invalid, consultant, and then you get to argue with them. And that was awful. So what we wanted to do is create a game that made it a lot more interactive, a lot more fun, and take all of those conversations and arguments off the table. But more importantly, we wanted it to be easy and something that you can replicate in your organization very, very, very quickly to get to the root of where you need to focus your dollars for computer security and what technologies you need to put in place, whether it's processes, policies, or procedures. So that's why we created this. I'm shuffling, so.
Yeah, so what you see on the screen up here, and so if you've never seen this before, we have different colored cards. So in your deck of Backdoors and Breaches are all the cards you need in order to play whenever you want to. Or you can go to play.backdoorsandbreaches.com and be able to play there for free. So the first card we have here is the initial compromise card. It's how the attackers initially get into your organization. The next card over is the pivot and escalate card. That's the yellow cards. And so if you're going through the cards in your deck, you would see red cards, initial compromise cards. The yellow cards are the pivot and escalate cards. And so that's how the attackers get from one system to another and escalate privileges. And then you have the C2 and exfiltration card, because if you break in and then you don't steal anything, then what's the point, right? And you got to be able to communicate and steal stuff in order for it to be a successful attack. And that's your C2 and exfiltration cards. And then if you go all the way over to persistence card, this is how the attackers keep getting back in. Now, if you have anything to do with high school students, I get a chance to play with high school students from time to time, and I love it. Because high school students, when they actually like catch on to the concept, they're like, so I can play a game and learn at the same time? Like, absolutely. So the way I explain persistence is, this is how you keep getting robbed. I don't know if you've ever been robbed. Unfortunately, if you have been robbed, I'm sorry that you got robbed. But think about it this way. The robber who broke into your house was scared. Even if you don't think they were scared. They got into your house and they didn't quite know where everything was. They didn't know where all the rooms were. They didn't know where all the good stuff was. And as they make their way through your house, they start looking at things and they go, you know what? I am not ready to rob this house. Yet. I need friends and a truck and one of those like dolly things so I can get the good stuff out of here because I found a safe that I really want to take home with me. And so persistence is where they unlock a window or they unlock a back door that you normally wouldn't check. That's why every time I check into an Airbnb, I do a house check of all windows and doors. If you don't do this, start, please. So I was in an Airbnb. I went down to the basement, and I was just doing my normal checks, and all of a sudden I opened up a window that was outside, and I was like, it's open. This is the window they're coming back in tonight to kill me. We can't stay here. My wife was like, that is ridiculous. And I was like, whatever. So I didn't sleep at all that night. And so that's the way computer security is for me at all times. There's a back window that people are going to come in at any time. And that's where persistence is. And when I explain it to the high school students, they're like, oh. And so now I've explained it to you. And so you can explain it to your teams and other people that you play with as well.
Jason, do you spend a lot of time explaining to high schoolers how to commit breaking and entering?
Actually, surprisingly, yes. So what you're going to notice on the backdoors and breaches cards is that the tools to do these attacks are on the cards. So if you're looking through your cards and you see the initial compromise attacks, if you see the pivot and escalation attacks, if you see the C2 attacks, if you see the persistence attacks, it's the legit tools that we use at Black Hills Information Security to do these types of attacks. And when I tell that to high school students, they get super excited about that as well.
Crimes.
All right. Don't do crime.
The other thing that I would like to point out is if you look at every single one of the cards that are red, yellow, brown, and purple, in addition to talking about the tools that can be used, there's this middle section called detection. Detection is what the blue cards are, and I'll let Jason talk about the blue cards here in a second, which blue cards flip that particular card over. So it's helping people to understand and correlate what are the security tools, techniques, processes, and procedures that we need to have to prevent this crime from happening. All right, so Jason, you want to talk about the blue cards a little bit?
So the blue cards are the things that you do in incident response to try to figure out what happened, right? Like a thing happened and you're trying to figure out what happened. And so we have the endpoint security protection analysis or the EDR card. And so we get a chance to play with sales and marketing teams from time to time from cybersecurity companies where I'm able to explain to them that you are a part of the incident response process. You are not the incident response process. Each one of these cards is a different concept or procedure that you would do to try to solve an incident. So we have the SIM log analysis, right? Like, where are you ingesting logs? How are you ingesting logs? Our favorite question is, do you currently have a data pond, a data lake, or a data ocean? And someone came back and was like, what's a planet that's just made of water? And I was like, yeah, okay.
I think I saw that Kevin Costner movie. It wasn't good.
Oh, yeah, Waterworld. That is an actual movie.
Throwback, yeah. It's awful.
So the blue cards are what you're going to use. So those of you in the audience, you're going to be our security team tonight. John's going to give you an incident that are comprised of the 4 attack cards. That's what you do. You choose the attack cards. Either you pick a scenario or you do it randomly. John likes to do it randomly. I like to pick the cards so I can teach the thing I want to teach. And so John has picked 4 cards. These 4 cards are going to create an attack scenario. John's going to give you a scenario, and then you all, everyone in here, are going to use the blue cards to try to solve this incident. And so if you see a blue card, and we're going to zoom in on them, because right now you're like, I am so far away, I can't read any of that.
You actually don't have to read them. Just you can shout out what you would want to do. We more than likely have that blue card, right? So if you're like, we would check AV, that's a card. It's like, we would look at our logs, we have that card. We would check the firewalls, that's here too. So don't hesitate. Don't be like, oh, I can't read it. It's fine. Just shout something out.
All right, John, are you ready to give the scenario?
I am. Are you ready?
I'm
by
ready.
the way, a few more logistic things. This is Jason and I. We're out. I'm sorry. Hey, but you know what you can do? You can play it for free at play.backdoorsandbreaches.com. So you can still get it. I always feel bad when we run out of cards.
I do too when they run out.
I have mine that I'm using, but we need that for tonight. So, all right. You have 10 rounds. So it's y'all against Jason and I. And we'll be the incident masters, and you as a group have got to solve this incident. Across the top, we have initial, attack, and compromise, pivot and escalate, command and control, and persistence cards. We have created an incident. There's almost an unlimited number of incident combinations in this deck that you have, and you can create incidents on the fly. You have 10 chances, and every single chance and everything you do will be determined by the roll of a 20-sided dice, and we'll be putting that up on the screen and saying whether or not it was successful. But Jason, can you talk about the cards at the top that are a little bit bigger than the rest of the cards?
Yeah, so does everyone see the 4 where it says established procedures? It might be hard to read, but it says established procedures. So we made an assumption when we were developing this game that where you work, you have some things written down. Is this true? Raise your hand if you have some procedures written down.
Documented.
Okay, now keep
Excellent.
them up if you have them all documented. Yeah, right?
That guy right there, he's a liar.
So we make an assumption that you have some things written down, not all things written down. And so as you start playing this game and all of a sudden you're like, wait a second, we do have that procedure written down. Well, you can give yourself a modifier for that. So established procedures have a +3 modifier, which means if you roll the dice and you get an 8, well, then you add 3 to it. Now you have 11. And 11 is enough for you to be successful. 1 through 10 is unsuccessful. 11 through 20 is successful. And here's what we're going to do. We're going to have you roll the dice. Because I don't want you to be mad at us for rolling the dice. I want you to be mad at you for rolling the dice. I want you to be happy with you for rolling the dice, not happy with us for rolling the dice. And so as we play, once again, it's interactive. And the more interactive it is, the more fun we're all going to have. And if you're like, I don't want to be on stage, neither do I. I am scared right now, y'all, and I'm still up here. All right, John, your turn.
Let's get started. So, for all of you playing the scenario, Monday morning you come into work. It was a long weekend following the Drake versus Kendrick Lamar battle. For those of you that get that joke, it's hilarious. For the rest of you, you're like, who's Drake and who's Kendrick Lamar? You're going to live longer and happier not knowing. But you spent all weekend tracking that rap beef between those two, and you're really, really tired. You roll into the office Monday morning, and all of a sudden, in honor of Matthew Broderick, one of your users sat down at her computer system, and the entire screen went black. And for a brief moment, it said, would you like to play a game? She called you and said, something terrifying happened on my computer system. I think it has something to do with war games, but I'm not sure. So if you had that happen, somebody said that there was weird behavior on their computer system at work, and they believe it to be an attack, what would be your next steps? Endpoint analysis. Just drop that, like, bam. Don't drop the mic. The AV guys will hate us. They'll hate you more, but they'll also hate me. But why don't you come on up and let's give a roll.
All right. So the first
endpoint analysis is awesome.
The first
by the way.
choice
Come on up.
is endpoint analysis. Is
Yes.
anyone in here? And we're gonna have you roll the dice. But
What's your name?
After.
Alex. All right. He even has the card. That's no. You keep that. This is your deck. You don't have to hand me the card. Okay. But you see that button? So you chose endpoint analysis, which if you look up here, Jason.
Yes.
It's one of our established procedures,
So
which means it gets a
+3.
+3 modifier. So if you could click where it says roll dice +3. 18 +3 was successful. A round of applause for Alex.
Is that a 21?
Excellent job. Thank you so much.
Well done.
It's like, what did I do? I just clicked a button.
Yeah.
You channeled positive vibes.
So if it's successful, then what John's going to do is take a look at all the attack cards and see, is endpoint analysis listed on any of the attack cards? Because we're doing the procedure to see if what the attackers are doing is detectable through endpoint analysis. Now, if it's not, then, it's not.
Then you were
But-
successful at rolling unsuccessfully.
Yes.
It's like Microsoft when it gives an error, an unspecified error occurred. But in this situation, whenever we look at the system, oh wow, this is the wrong deck. This is the right deck. When we look at this system, we quickly identified that there's something called application shimming that exists on this computer system. Now, Applications shimming is one of my favorite attack vectors for persistence because you're creating a rootkit on a Windows computer system using a toolkit created by whom? Who created the toolkit that allows us to do application compatibility? Microsoft. So Microsoft literally created a tool to make different applications compatible with different versions of Microsoft. And the reason why they did this is different versions of Microsoft from ME to Microsoft Windows 2000, Windows 7, all these different versions of Windows would have registry keys and folders in different locations. And what application shimming allows you to do is wrap the application in such a way where you lie to it. You say the directory of interest is here. The registry of interest is over there. And you lie to that application by shimming it. And you can shim built-in applications in Microsoft like the command prompt, like EDR products, like the security products that we use every day, thanks to Microsoft giving us a toolkit that allows us to do this. So whenever we looked at that system, we did endpoint analysis, we saw that there were actual application shims installed on that Microsoft computer system. Does anybody know where you would see that application shims are installed? You know where you can see installed programs? They will actually show up as an installed program in the installed programs, unless you shim that to hide those installed programs. But in this situation, it worked, and we were able to identify that there was shims installed on this computer system. So that's kind of fun. Yes, question? Is that called a shim inside of a shim inside of a shim? Yes, common? We have seen it. We have seen shimming once. I haven't seen shimming where it's shimmed to the shim inside of the shim. Later, I'll tell you about my Rock'em Sock'em socks. I want to create socks that are robots, and they talk to each other, but they're Rock'em Sock'em socks. I think it's hilarious. No one else does, but we'll talk later about it.
Yeah, we're having a real hard time with
Hard time with that one. Hard time with that one.
Okay, so the question I have for you, interactive way, did you just learn something? So could you imagine that this game is an opportunity to learn things? So what happens is sometimes we don't have an opportunity to learn something until we have an opportunity to learn something. And so when this game is played and you reveal a card and then you ask your team, does anyone here know how application shimming works? Now, if someone on your team knows how application shimming works, you then have them explain it to the rest of you on the team. And if no one knows how it works, then I have an idea for you. It's called a lunch and learn, about 2 weeks from the incident game that you're playing, where you have 5 slides where you put together, here's how application shimming works, here's what we learned about it, and here's how we can detect it inside our environment. So
also, I wanted to shout out, if you go to that link and you register, almost every single one of the cards has a corresponding lab that we have created at Anti-Siphon Security Training that is freely available to everyone, everywhere. You just have to sign up and trust the link. And I will get you access to that. I will share that up again. The other thing that I wanted to point out is we just got done talking about application shimming. How many of you are like, yeah, that's cool, but what about cloud? Does that apply? Do we have anything for cloud? Yeah, for you, and apparently only you. Just you. You're the only one interested. We have an entire deck that is dedicated to cloud level attacks. So we have an entire expansion pack just for that. That's not what we're playing here today, but it goes far beyond just standard endpoint analysis as well. All right, so we got one for one. Thank you very much. That's an excellent roll.
So you'll have 9 turns left, 9 turns to get this, and you're like, well, this game seems real easy. All right, well, let's keep going. So if you were the security team and you just discovered application shimming on that endpoint, what would you want to do next?
Isolation.
Isolation.
I like that. I
Okay.
like that. Now, just so you know, isolation's an interesting card because it doesn't turn over any cards at all. It doesn't flip over the initial compromise, doesn't flip over pivot and escalate. It does absolutely nothing except give you 2 extra turns.
If you do it well.
So is everyone all in favor of doing client isolation? Raise your hand.
Okay.
Oh, look at
That's the
that.
majority.
All right, come on up here and give it a roll. Come on up here and give it a roll. Now, Client isolation, Jason, is not on the top row. It's not top shelf liquor. What it is it's a straight 50-50 roll. So if you could do me a favor and select roll dice right there and click it, and it's going to roll the dice.
A 6.
It didn't work out for you.
6. Okay.
Can we get a series of boos for, what's your name? Aslam. We're a series of boos for Aslam. Boo!
Isn't that
Thank
how
you
it
for
feels
coming
at
up.
work?
We appreciate you. And all right, by the way, we love it. We absolutely love it when there's failed rolls. Why do we like failed rolls?
Okay,
so much?
so failed rolls is where you actually get to learn about your own security. So whenever you have a failure inside backdoors and breaches, you roll less than a 10, then you ask your team this question. Are you ready? It's got 4 parts to it. If you're like, I'm gonna take notes, here's the notes to take. Whenever you have an unsuccessful roll in backdoors and breaches, you ask the team, can you give me a reason, either politically, financially, technologically, or personnel-wise, why we are unable to isolate at this time. Not for forever, just in this moment. Can anyone raise their hand and give me a possible reason, either politically, financially, technologically, or personnel-wise, why you would be unable to isolate this system right now? Yes. It's a production machine.
Ooh.
Okay.
You're too young to be that old and jaded, man. You're way too old. That man right there, he can be old and jaded.
Yes, I am. It's completely remote.
It's completely remote. Okay. Anyone else?
I got a story on that though. So years ago, I was working an incident, and I was based out of Denver at the Federal Center, and they said we've got an incident in the middle of Wyoming, up at Fort Washakie, Wyoming. Do me a favor, open up your phones and do a search for Fort Washakie, Wyoming. You'll be hard-pressed to find any place more remote than Fort Washakie, Wyoming. They actually had me drive up to Fort Washakie, Wyoming to deal with a server that was compromised, and I went in, and it was this little shack out in the middle of Fort Washakie, Wyoming. Once again, Google it. And I said, hey, where's the server room? They're like, it's in there. And I went in, and I'm like, no, this is the bathroom. Where's the server room? They're like, look above the toilet. There it was. I had to do IR on a system in a bathroom. Yes, so that's.
One of my first consulting gigs.
Was in Fort Washakie?
No.
Oh.
It was a bail bonds office in Connecticut where a server was on top of a sink.
It was a server. I got to repeat it because no one can hear you. It's just creating dead space. So he said he had to do IR in Connecticut, which.
Yeah, sorry.
That's pretty remote.
Yeah.
That's sorry about that.
Yeah.
And it was on a sink?
It was in a bathroom sink in an unconditioned office in the middle of summer in Connecticut.
In an un-air-conditioned office in Connecticut.
And nobody, it's a bail bonds company.
It was a bail bonds company. So you just knew that sink was clean. Like, I've seen Dog the Bounty Hunter. That guy looks like he washes
Yeah,
his
he
hands.
takes care of himself. Good.
All right, go ahead.
So you tried to isolate, you were unable to isolate. Has this ever happened before, where you tried to isolate and you can't right now?
Yes.
Right, yeah, it's possible. So here's, like, one of the main reasons we created Backdoors and Breaches was because of that argument thing that John talked about in the beginning. You rolled badly, and now you have to come up with the reason why it doesn't work, either politically, financially, technologically, or personnel-wise. And all of a sudden, it's no longer like a challenge. It's now the challenge is, okay, why would that not work? And so you start writing things down of why it wouldn't work right now, and all of a sudden you have what's called possible findings from today's tabletop exercise. That's where the good stuff comes from. Every time you have a failed roll and you have to write down why it isn't possible right now to do this is a possible finding from today's tabletop. I was working with one organization and I was like, all right, so why wouldn't you be able to isolate right now? It's like, well, in order to isolate, we have to contact our team in Asia, and normally it takes them 2 days to get back to us. And I was like, okay, so that's why you're not isolating right now. It's like, yeah, it's because of the process. And so when you look at your actual processes and you ask yourselves, why won't this work right now? Then all of a sudden you start coming up with things to potentially fix or at least live with. All right, John, what's next?
They got to come up with the next step. So by the way, as I'm going through, you can see I'm putting these red circles. Jason, can you explain what these red circles
Yeah, so
represent?
in backdoors and breaches, whenever you do anything successfully or unsuccessfully, you have a 3-turn cool-off period. So you have to wait 3 turns in order to do it again. And the reason why we did that is because when we first started playing this game, people would just brute force the same thing over and over again. It's like, well, just roll again and just roll again. And so we gave this 3-turn cool-off period so that you would have to think differently and pivot from one decision to another and go, well, if I can't do that, then what about this? What if we do this?
All right, so we are shooting about 50%, which is okay, I guess. So what is our next step? Anyone, what would you do? After I made them boo at you, no one wants to say anything. You would look at the sign-in logs. Excellent. We would look at the logs. Now, what's very cool about what you just said is we have this catch-all card called Sim Log Analysis, right? So if we were, we would check the exchange logs. That's under log analysis, right? Because I like to think of Sim as just a big bucket which you dump logs, and then out the backside, checks go to the company that created the Sim. It's like a meat processor, right?
John?
I know.
Just remember where we are, man.
All right, so when you're looking at the logs, like, you can't expect your sim to do absolutely everything for you, right? Once again, I just keep screwing this up.
It's okay.
Except for the fine vendors on the main floor, their logs are awesome. But any security, you guys stop, okay? Any security tool you have is only as good as the people that are running that security tool.
Preach.
Yes, so when we do that log analysis, we can look at those logon logs and look at the authentication logs on the system in the SIM. So come on up and let's click a button. Seems like a long way to go. Now we're doing SIM log analysis, and all you have to do is hit that little roll dice right there, not the +3. Just go ahead and click it. I don't want to do it because I want them to blame you. Go ahead. Oh, bum, 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 bum. Oh.
All right, this is gonna be a fun one. Can anyone give me a reason politically, financially, technologically, or personnel-wise why your sim is ineffective at this time? It doesn't work right now.
Kind of
just doesn't
slam
work
dunked
right
that one.
Yes. False sense of security.
Yes.
Ouch.
Could you shout it out again? Excellent. I want to talk about that.
The logs
we
weren't
gotta talk about
actually
that.
going to it.
Said the logs weren't actually going to it. Anyone here use WEC-WEFs? Windows Event Collection, Windows Event Forwarding? Goes down all the time. When we're pen testing, it's very regular that you see Windows Event Forwarding, Windows Event Collection stops. Now, whenever it stops, does it generate an alert and say, hey, I'm taking a break, taking one on me, on Microsoft. We're just gonna, okay, this is good. Just gonna quit. No, it just quietly fails, silently, in the middle of the night, like Drake's career. Sorry, I'm so on Team Kendrick. It's not
I
even
am
funny.
not following this at all.
That's okay. You don't have to, because they think it's funny, or at least enough of them do that start a critical mass of laughter that make other people go, ha 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 ha. I'm relevant and not old.
I have to laugh. He's my boss.
So I think that's great. It happens all the time in our penetration tests where they're like, well, it's funny. We'll break into a company and they'll be like, how come we didn't detect you? It's like, you're kind of talking to the wrong people about that. I just know it didn't catch us. So, all right, we still have 8 turns. That was a horrible roll. But we're 2 horrible rolls
Yeah,
in.
we are 2 horrible rolls.
We need
in.
a 3rd horrible roll because
Yes.
something magic happens with 3
Yes.
horrible rolls.
I just want to let you know, if you have another horrible roll, then an inject card will come into the game. And an inject card creates chaos, either positive or not positive. I don't know. It will be random what happens. And so now that you did endpoint analysis and you revealed the persistence card, you then try to isolate. That was not effective at this time. You tried to use the sim, also not effective. Here's one of my favorite questions to ask the team whenever there's an ineffective roll. I will say, hey, who's your sim expert here? And if all of a sudden they're like looking at each other and no one's like I was like, okay, so maybe it's a training issue. Okay, all right, possible. All right, so your sim hasn't worked. What would you like to do now?
So I want to call one thing out before we query the audience. Notice that the persistence is where we're stuck right now. We just found out that there was malware on that system. You don't have to raise your hand for your current organization, because your current organization is fantastic. But how many of you have worked with or for a company that as soon as they found the malware on a system, they go, well, let's just kill that system. Fdisk format reinstall, doo-dah, doo-dah, Fdisk format reinstall. And they nuke the system and they're like, problem solved. How many of you have seen organizations that do that, right? Only these other people. All the rest of these organizations are fantastic at computer security. It's a solved problem, actually. Let me guess, this half of the room who didn't raise your hands, you guys are using AI, right? You're all AI people on the left-hand side, big left brain or right brain people. It's all about the AI. Excellent. All right, so actually we got to add AI cards in here. There's a DLP card in here, and it basically says, ha ha ha, just kidding, DLP never works. All right, so does anybody here work for a DLP company? All right, cool, all right. Yeah. So we need another step. What's the next step?
Cyber deception. Yes.
I like that, man.
Oh, all right. I got a question for everyone in the room, and I love asking this question whenever I get a chance to play with organizations. And I will ask them this question, and I will ask you to do the same thing I asked them to do. Please lie to me when I ask you this question. Are you currently using cyber deception? Just say it out loud. Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. That's the point of cyber deception. Like, it is lying to the attackers about what your infrastructure is like. And so we love cyber deception. In fact, when we encounter an organization that's using cyber deception as a penetration testing company, we cry a little bit, but we're also happy a little bit, right? Because we're like, this is going to be hard. And that's the good part, right? Like anything that's inconvenient for the attackers. John, you actually teach an entire class on this because you love this so much. When John told me what this class was, I was like, so it's like Home Alone? So like you set traps and you just like come up with ways to make the attackers' lives miserable? That sounds like fun, John.
Who wants to see a lab of what it's like to make an attacker's life miserable? Anyone? All right, cool. So this is that link that I put up there. That's right. Oh, that's not it. Command prompt. This link right here. This is what I'm going to get you guys access to.
Totes legit.
It's totes legit. And it's not this link. This link is free, and I know it's free. But I want to share with you two things that will make a pen tester cry. And as Jason said, we like it when our pen testers cry. We collect their tears. It makes the best wine. The first thing is a honey user. This is something that every single one of you can set up in your organization in less than like 20 minutes. And we have a lab where we create a honey user from the command prompt on the Windows computer system in the lab. We generate 200 users. We create a custom view and event viewer. Now we're running it locally because it's a lab and we're trying to articulate a concept in 15 minutes or less. And if you can create a rule, an event viewer on Microsoft Windows, you can sure do it in your big expensive SIM. But this rule and what we create is very, very, very basic. We simply create a rule that if anybody tries to log in as Frank, it generates an alert. That's it. So what happens is an attacker, whenever they run a tool like password spraying tools, Local Password Spray is a tool that's written by Bo Bullock. It's a fork of Domain Password Spray, which is a free tool. And it attempts to authenticate to every single user in an environment with a given password. Now, what do you think would be a good password to try on every single user in your environment? If I'm an attacker. Password 123, right? That's great. That's fantastic. I had an intern. I'm not lying. I had an intern that set up a system in DigitalOcean for me. And I said, hey, could you send me over the creds in Secret Server? And he sent me over the creds. I went to the creds, and he literally set it up with the password of password 1234. Now, I was like, is this a joke? And he's like, well, no, I wanted to make it an easy password. I'm like, how dumb do you think I am? Don't answer that. Don't answer that. Other passwords that would be good. Password 1234 is a good one. What's another good password?
Is it spring?
1234 5. That guy's salty. Season and year. How many of a password of season and year? Almost got you. Get you next time.
Spring.
Yeah. So as soon as somebody tries to authenticate, they don't have to authenticate successfully. They just have to attempt to authenticate. It will trip an alert, and you'll be able to see that someone authenticated to the Frank account. This will catch every single internal red teamer that you ever have coming into your environment. I guarantee it. Set it up. The testers will run a script that automatically tries to authenticate to every single user. You will catch them. When that happens, contact me. I love to hear those stories. So that's one lab that we have. The next one is setting up a honey share. Attackers have tools that will automatically search through every single share in your environment, and they'll try to find files with certain keywords like social security numbers, passwords, user IDs, backup files for virtual machines. So you can create a share using a tool called InPacket that is a fake share on the network. And if anybody tries to authenticate to that share, it will automatically log who that person is, the user ID, the password hash, ironically enough, the IP address, and the date timestamp. But I want to show you something that I think is really, really funny. See, if you try to access this share, you'll get an error from Windows. And it'll say, oh, you can't access that share. The security is not high enough on that share. We stopped you from going to that share to protect you. But in the background, what Windows does is it sends the user ID, the password hash, and everything for trying to access that share. So the point I'm trying to get across on this is when you're playing this game, we didn't just want to create a game that's like, oh, here you go, check it out. We wanted to make sure for all of those blue cards and many of the attack cards, your team can get their hands dirty and learn that thing that we're talking about. So, all right, so cyber deception is where it's at.
He's going to come on up and roll the dice. So come on up. You're going to roll the dice and see what we get. Now, just a reminder to everyone in the room, if this is a failed roll, no pressure, you will get an NJAC card, which will create chaos in the game.
Roll dice right there.
All right, so here we go.
It was successful, 19.
Oh,
by the way,
you.
Round of applause.
Hey.
That was fantastic. Yeah. That sucks.
Yeah, we'll get him next time.
We'll get him next time. We'll get him next time.
All right, so cyber deception was used. John, is cyber deception on any of the attack cards?
I don't know. I'm losing the attack cards here.
So John's going to look at the attack cards, look at the detections on the attack cards, and see if any of them list cyber deception. John, do any of them list cyber deception?
Absolutely. The yellow card for Pivot and Escalate is the Weaponizing Active Directory card. And some of the tools that we know, use, and love, Bloodhound, Death Star, CrackMap Exec, and then also we have some webcasts in here as well. How many of you have heard these tools or had these tools used in your environment? Yeah. Yeah.
So take a look at the detections. If any 4 of those detections would have been used successfully, that could have revealed this card. Does that make sense? All right, so as you're playing the game with your team, and they were like, well, let's take a look at the sim, and the sim was successful. Not this time. It wasn't successful when you all rolled it. But if it was successful, then it would have revealed this card. All right.
Let me flip that one over. And I've got to move cyber deception, sim log analysis. Endpoint analysis is back in play. Up top, we have the documented procedures. All right. So.
Well, John, if they already did endpoint analysis and it was successful, then why would it need to be available again?
That's a great point. I got a question. How many times have you been working an incident and you try something and then you do a bunch of other stuff, you learn some new information, and you go back and review your first endpoint analysis EDR product, or you go and you check the endpoint again and again. You check these things based on new information coming into the incident. It changes the way that you want to go and re-review something that you've done before. So that's why we take things out for 3 turns. And the other reason is just like you said, logistically, the way this game worked, we had people that would just do the same card over and over and over again, and that was really lame. So we tried to get people to kind of break these things out and kind of think about it in a different
So
way.
raise your hand if you've never heard of Bloodhound. All right, so we got some people who've never heard of Bloodhound. Is Bloodhound free, John?
Yes, I do believe it is.
Yeah, so I was playing this game with the C-suite at a hospital, regional hospital. And as I was playing the game, the IT director that was there helping to facilitate with the C-suite, I enjoyed having the CEO, the CFO, all those people there playing, like they're learning about cybersecurity for the first time. It was fantastic. You can definitely bring in C-suite people, have them play this game. They're going to be confused for like the first 20 minutes, and then at some point they're like, I'm enjoying myself. So what happened was the IT director said to the C-suite, by the way, every tool he has mentioned is free. Every tool that attacks us is free.
Remember where you are.
Oh, yeah. All right, moving on, John.
But no, in all seriousness, that gets really uncomfortable whenever you're talking to executives or attorneys, because we do this with a lot of our law firm customers. They're like, wait a minute. So a tool that does this hack is just publicly available? Yes. What is the website that this is on? GitHub. Can we shut this GitHub down? You can try. I mean, sit back and watch. That'll be fun. So.
All right, so you were successful with cyber deception. It revealed another card. Now you have 2 cards of the attack available. You know what the pivot and escalate was. You still don't know what the initial compromise is. You don't know how the command and control or the exfiltration is happening. So what would you do in order to find those 2 things? You're trying to find those 2 aspects of the attack. So what would you want to do now? Firewall logs. I heard
like
a lot of people say
firewall logs
just
at the
firewall
same
logs.
time.
All right.
Come on up, because you're in the front row and you're close, or whoever said it. Come on back.
Do you get a chance to redeem yourself?
I don't know.
Here we go. All right, here we go.
Either this is going to be a redemption roll, or it's just going to be terrible again.
Now, one of the values of this is a +3 modifier. This represents a documented procedure. So this is like T-ball.
Okay.
I'm literally setting it up, putting the ball on top of the thing. Go ahead and click it and roll. And then we get 9 + 3. It's successful.
Hey, thank goodness you wrote that down. Oh my goodness. Imagine if you didn't write that down. All right, so it reveals bits. John, before you explain bits, I always like to ask the cyber defenders here, raise your hand if you know how bits works.
He's like,
I have played this with over 200 organizations, and every time bits shows up, I'm like, all right, can anyone here explain bits? And they're like,
it's up to you, Jason.
No. All right, John, what's bits?
So, when baby Windows computer systems get their updates, it's through a protocol called BITS, Background Intelligent Transfer Service. So, let me tell you a story. A long time ago, we created a tool at Black Hills Information Security called GCAT. And the way GCAT worked is it, oh no, it's Pipe Leader. There we go.
That's some
Come
crazy
on.
pictures that came up.
What happened? GCAT, like Google just loves my my search history.
I am just so thankful that that's the only thing that came up.
What seriously came up? All right.
You're fine.
I'm okay. God, what did come up?
No, it's fine.
I'm
It's
just
fine.
delete my browser history before I go. So we created this tool called GCAT. And the purpose of GCAT was to use well-formed Google emails as a command and control method. And the reason why we did this is because I had a theory that everything that was going to and from Gmail was being ignored by all of your security products and your firewalls and DLP and all of those different things. And it turns out we were right. A number of firewall vendors will ignore any and all traffic that goes to Google or to Gmail. Why? Why would they ignore all that traffic?
It's trusted.
Google says thank you, by the way. The company that said don't be evil and said, no, we got to change that motto. We got to get away from that one, would say thank you. But it's trusted. What's another advantage if you ignore any and all traffic to Google? What's another advantage if you're an inline security product that's analyzing all the traffic coming and going to the internet? Speed, right? You ignore all the traffic, and all of a sudden, a huge amount of traffic to the internet is ignored by your appliance, so it speeds it up. The other thing that I think is kind of funny, how many of you here read XKCD? Yeah,
It was a couple,
awesome.
John.
So there's an XKCD comic that I absolutely love that says, Rob, you use Unix, come quick. To disarm the bomb, simply enter a valid tar command on your first try, no Googling, you have 10 seconds. Rob, I'm so sorry. How many of you Google on a daily basis how to use commands? How many of you Google on a daily basis, like what logs mean? So imagine if every time you Googled how to use tar, or, you know, what is it, tracer T? Like, how to use tracer T? Thank you, Next Gen Hacker 101. That it would generate an alert in your firewall saying, you know, you don't know how to use tar. And it was like, oh, he's using Google again. So that's ignored. So BITS is another protocol that we discovered, and it's been used quite often in attacks that we've been seeing as well. And we've released some tools talking about this as a proof of concept that a lot of security appliances ignore completely. And one of the big reasons why they ignore it is because trying to intercept the BITS traffic requires having access to the certificates for like TLS SSL, and usually it's used by what company? Microsoft. And you can't shim it. So it's trusted, it's a lot of data for a bunch of different systems. You can't really shim it all that easily or do SSL or TLS interception, so a number of vendors just ignore it completely, becoming an excellent protocol for command and control. Now, how many of you had never heard of BITS before? Like, to me talking about it is like, holy crap, this is terrifying. Thank God AI will save us. Yeah, all right. We're doing good.
Yeah.
We're doing real good.
You're on turn number 6. You have 6 turns remaining. That's fantastic. All right, so you have revealed the pivot and escalate card. You've revealed the C2 and exfil card. You've revealed the persistence card. You still don't know how this whole thing started. John, I think one of the things that you taught me early on in incident response is that sometimes you find an incident while looking for an incident. And that's always stuck with me because like sometimes you're like, I'm curious why this is happening. And then when you go searching, you're like, oh my God, how long has this been here?
Yeah.
All right, so we have the initial compromise. If anyone's trying to find the initial compromise, what would you want to use? Reminder, endpoint analysis is available. Not a clue, it's a fact. John, did you move everything around?
I have not yet.
All right, so firewall log there. Isolation's back up. Anybody, huh? Isolation? No? Maybe?
They're feeling good.
They don't care anymore.
They're like, there's no way that we would roll failed rolls 6 times in a row. That's never happened in this game.
All right, so what would you like to do next? Yes.
I'd like to redo endpoint analysis for recent files.
Okay, so wants to redo endpoint analysis to take a look for recent files.
Is it okay if I click for you? All right, because you're sitting in the middle. Let's not do that. We're in IT. Someone's going to get hurt. I can guarantee it. It's like when people throw things at me, it's like, ah! All right.
All right, so John's going to roll.
So this is endpoint analysis.
Endpoint analysis.
All right. Here we go. Rolling the dice, +3 modifier. We roll it.
Yep.
It's successful, sir.
All
Round
right,
of applause.
it's successful.
Round of applause.
All right, John, so take a look at that initial compromise card and see.
No.
Oh, it's not on there. So whatever the attackers are doing would not be detected.
You
through
did
endpoint
that
analysis.
successfully, but now it's playing. We're like playing InfoSec Battleship. It's like you successfully rolled, you successfully looked at that endpoint system to try to figure out what happened to it, but this particular card, whatever the attackers didn't show up with your cheat sheets when you were doing that endpoint analysis. So you were successful, but it didn't cover the specific use case of how this particular attack went down.
All right, John,
that's-
go ahead and adjust the 3,
Yes,
2,
I
and
will.
1. Revealing the SIM is available again. Not a clue, it's a fact. All right, so you do endpoint analysis. It doesn't detect what the attackers are doing. So you still have 5 turns left. What would you like to do now?
Got it way, way in the back. Shout it out. Server analysis. Excellent. So the server analysis we created because we have all kinds of different servers, right? There's Oracle servers, there's web servers, there's Exchange servers, there's tons of different servers. So we created a catch-all card called Server Analysis. If I can find my own cards, there we go. That is that catch-all. Because when you're creating cheat sheets, a lot of organizations will go out and they will find like the SANS cheat sheets. The SANS cheat sheets are amazing for looking at a Windows computer system, for looking at a Linux computer system, but they don't have cheat sheets for looking at Exchange servers. They don't have them for looking at Nginx. They don't have them for looking at Oracle. And usually what we recommend you do when you create those guides is go to the Center for Internet Security Hardening Guides, take a look at those guides and see what the security relevant files and configurations are and create your own checklists for your team to be able to check that server for initial signs of compromises on it as well.
Do you want to bring them up so we can roll the dice?
Do you want to come up or do you want me just to click it?
All right.
Yeah, here we go. All right, so that is a straight 50-50 roll. We ready?
Yep.
Here we go. Rolling the dice. It's a 13.
All right. All right,
Excellent.
John.
Excellent. So, in this particular scenario, the initial compromise was who'd have guessed it? Fish.
No way.
You're like, I would have guessed it. Absolutely. What was that?
You cannot shout out.
You cannot
the
shout out
cards.
what you think it is. We've tried that, and it literally is just people yelling at us. Phishing, web server compromise, insider threat. I'm like, oh, flashbacks to my childhood. No. How do you spell there? How do you spell there? I don't know. So,
Okay.
Thank you for sharing. It was great. You all came with me.
All right, John. So John, go ahead and explain what happened here. How did she get this on her system?
All right. So this particular attack, the attacker got in initially with a spearfish. And I joke about that, but the amount of attacks that we deal with in IR, it's like almost always phishing, right? Like if you're going to shout something out, go right for that one. It's something like in the 80s, 80% of the time, something like that. It's usually an attack using spearphishing. Click this link, go here. So that's how they initially got in. Once they got into the computer system, they then weaponized Active Directory using tools like Bloodhound to do an internal analysis of looking at permissions and weaknesses of those permissions in the entire organization to find a path to get to domain administrator. And we turned that card over, I believe. What did we turn this one over?
Cyber deception.
Cyber deception. So we saw the attacker was trying to do an internal attack utilizing that. The attacker was then using bits as the transfer to fly underneath the radar of many security products that are intercepting TLS SSL, but are ignoring bits as a protocol. And then finally, the attacker was using built-in Windows capabilities to shim applications. In this situation, the applications like security products or analysis products to hide and persist on this particular computer system. So when we set this all down, we have initial attack compromise, phishing, weaponizing Active Directory, bits, and application shimming was the attack.
So what happens is once you have either revealed all 4 cards because you do it successfully, or you get to the end of your 10 turns and just reveal whatever's left over, then what you do is you ask the team who's been playing, right? You've all been playing, you've been listening, you've been thinking about your own security, you've been thinking about the attacks that you do and do not know so far. Once you are finished with this, you ask the team, is this a plausible attack in our environment? So you would ask your team to answer a yes or no question, not a nuanced question, a yes or no question. Then you ask them each individually, is this a plausible attack in our environment? And then you ask. And then if someone says yes, you move on to the next person. The next person says no, and you're like, that's strange. And then you move on to the next person. They say yes, and yes, and yes, and yes. And then what you do when you're done is you go back to the one person who said yes, and you say, tell me why you think this is a plausible attack. And they'll explain, well, because of this, 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 and this, I think it's a plausible attack. And then you ask the person who said no, why don't you think it's a plausible attack? And it's like, well, because I know that we implemented this, and that would stop this attack. And the rest of the team goes, we did what? I didn't know we had that. When did we get that? And you're like, remember, he came back from RSA, and we like bought that thing, and implemented it. It took like 6 weeks.
Don't you remember seeing the banner in the airport?
Yeah. And so you ask that question to your whole team, is this a plausible attack? And let them think through it critically. Let them think through, is it possible? Let them think through. Now, if anyone says the words maybe, don't allow the words hope, try, or maybe in the responses during a tabletop exercise. What that means is the person is trying to sound intelligent so that you'll move on to the next thing. Whenever someone says hope, try, or probably when I'm leading a tabletop, I'm like, all right, we're going to stop here for a minute and talk about that. And we're going to talk about that until I hear a definitive answer of either I don't know or this is the actual answer. And so I don't allow that to happen. And then lastly, well, John, I'll let you go.
Well, okay, so I want to ask you all, does this look, how many of you think that this is a probable attack? This is something an attacker could pull off? Very good. Very good. All right. Now comes the dicey question. What level of skill do you think this attacker was? Mediocre. Why? Let me walk through this real quick. We're talking about an attacker at this particular point that was able to bypass email protections. I'm just going to tell you right now that a lot of the email protections that are out there are getting very, very difficult to bypass. Number one. Number two, this was an attacker that was able to bypass the EDR in your environment. And I can make fun of Cylance, I can make fun of CrowdStrike, I can make fun of SentinelOne, I can make fun of all of these vendors, but the reality of all of these vendors is modern antivirus in the form of EDR is light years ahead of where we were with traditional denialist antivirus. This is also an attacker that was smart enough to use a protocol that bypassed many existing firewall tools using bits. The application shimming is rare, but it's not that hard. The thing I want you to understand is that I would say that this particular attacker that put this together, I wouldn't say that they're on the floor, but they're definitely not the top shelf attackers, but they're somewhere definitely in between. And that scares me, because all these techniques that we talk about and the bypasses are a matter of time and patience. In Black Hills Information Security, we do continuous pen testing, where we're constantly trying to break into companies, trying to get away from like a 2-week or a 1-month pen test. And the reason why that is successful, and there's other companies that do this too, the reason why that is successful is we wait. It's like picking a lock. I have to wait until we find a technique or one is public for bypassing email protections. I have to wait and find a way, like right now we're sitting on a couple with Microsoft where we can bypass EDRs relatively easily on endpoints. So you wait for these things and you're patient and they line up, and then you're able to get that lock to click and get the full attack path through. So this is important for us to sit down and have these conversations. Like if this was phishing, weaponizing Active Directory, HTTP as the command and control, and then just a service, we have another card that's purple that says just a malicious service. That is a script kiddie. Very, 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 very basic script kiddie breaking into an environment. The thing that's interesting about this is I can guarantee that the vast majority of people in this room didn't even know about bits and didn't even know about application shimming. And that's not because you're like, oh, you're bad at security. It's just there's a lot of attack methodologies that we use every day in the offensive community that defenders don't know about. And that is one of the things that absolutely terrifies me. Because when we're investigating an incident, usually we start with what? Whenever you're doing an investigation. Sherlock Holmes, what do you start with? Science class. In 5th grade, you start with what? A theory. And you start working backwards on that theory. And our theories many times drive our investigations, which means our investigations are only as good as our theories. Does that make sense? And if there's certain things that are available to the attacking community that we don't even set theories about, it's going to lead us into the wrong direction. So I like that question. Then you had another question you wanted to ask the group as well.
Yeah, so when it's completely done, and I've been doing this a lot. I've done a lot of tabletop exercises, and if you plan to take this back and you plan to like show your team, first of all, your team's going to go, it's a game. Yeah, no, it's great. I saw it at RSA, it's great. And they're like, yeah, you saw a lot of stuff at RSA. Yeah. No, we got to play this game. So you play this game, and at the end, and you ask that question, is this a plausible attack, and everyone thinks critically about it, then what you do to wrap up everything is that you ask each individual person, including the spectators and anyone else that you brought into the room to see this game take place, you ask them, what was your one takeaway today? You ask every single person, what was your one takeaway today? 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 And I've seen where you bring your senior leadership into the room, you bring people who are authorizing and paying for the stuff that you're asking for, you bring in people from other departments like HR. One of my favorite things is we have a card in here for insider threat, and all of a sudden when the card gets revealed and the insider threat gets revealed, and all of a sudden you ask the HR person, all right, so what's the policy to lock down someone's computer that you think is currently committing a crime? And they go, crap. I don't think we have one. And so that becomes like a possible finding from today's tabletop. Like there's so many things that get revealed by having these conversations in a game. And so when you ask every single person, what was your one takeaway today? What was your one takeaway today? What was your one takeaway? One of my favorite takeaways was when the CEO had listened to this entire thing happen, and the CEO said, I have full faith in my security team, because I got a chance to see them work through how they work through things. And if you're thinking to yourself like, okay, like, no, it's cool when you bring them into the room and let them see your methodology. And when you roll the dice and you have to talk about the things that aren't working, and they're like, oh, so that's why we don't, okay, that's why we don't have that. What? That's why we don't have that.
I will tell you it gets awkward where it's like, okay, so why don't we have this technology in this company? And the CISO is right there. And they're like, well, you know, some budget considerations possibly. I don't know. It's not quite my call. And, you know. Sometimes CISOs get a little uncomfortable, and they're like, I feel like I'm getting attacked here. So,
I always remind people that I am not here to make you look bad. I'm here to reveal the truth.
So,
and I want to know the truth of your security. I don't want to know your assumptions of your security. And so that generally helps. All right, so John, as we wrap up here today.
I just want to call out like one final thing. It's next week. Are we doing a pay what you can? Okay. So, right now, with this game, whenever we created it, one of the things that we set out to do is to try to make it as accessible for as many people as possible. And I wanted to show you this. So backdoors and breaches and all of these, you can play them online, which is great, but the entire GitHub is available for everybody. All of the images, all of the cards, the entire game is all available. You can fork this repo, you can rebrand it with your company's logos, because trust me, management loves that. When you got good corporate spirit, it's awesome. They dig it. It's all available, right? And with this game, how many copies have we sold or given away so far?
100,000.
So there's a lot of them out there. And we give them away at conferences. We make this stuff available for free. And I just want to kind of spend a couple of seconds and explain why. I'm tired of getting our asses kicked by the attackers. And I fundamentally believe that there's no problem that we can't solve in this community with education. Education is that thing. It is that magical thing that can solve all of our problems. I believe it deep, deep, deep in my core being. And to that end, like I said, if you sign up for the labs, I'll get you a link for we have free training that's coming up next week. So at Anti-Siphon, we do pay what you can training, which is insane. And I want to make it very clear that I understand that that's insane.
Zero is an option.
Zero is absolutely an option. So you can pay nothing. You can pay $500 if you want to. We really appreciate it if you pay $500, by the way.
I won't be mad at you.
But why we're here, and one of the reasons why we keep coming back, is we desperately want to give back to the community, and we desperately want to destroy the barriers that exist to get into this community. RSA has done a tremendous amount. We were talking about it right before we came up on stage, and we were talking about RSA and the progression and even the maturity of RSA and other conferences. And we put out this training as pay what you can, and we do not care your background. We don't care about your socioeconomic status, your religion, your race, your sex, anything. We're trying to break down and burn all of the bridges wherever they may be. So you may not need pay what you can training, but you probably know someone who would benefit from it. You maybe have a son or a daughter, or a niece, a nephew, a friend that has shown aptitude in IT, but they may not have the ability to go to college. They may not have the ability to try to go and get a job that they can come to amazing conferences like this in San Francisco, but you know they got that spark, you know that they got that fire. All they need is a chance. Send them our way. And we'll give you guys all a link. It's pay what you can, zero is an option. And we have to destroy these barriers. We keep hearing 1 million more people are needed in computer security. I think not only do we need more people in computer security, but we need to constantly be educating the people in the computer security. And to be blunt, it's not something we're going to do with traditional cash cow security training. So with that in mind, this game is free. Use it. We have pay what you can training that's available to everyone. Come and send other people. And with that, I just want to say again, thank you so much for coming. We love coming to this event. Cecilia and the team do an amazing job. We come back just for this.
Yeah, we fly in just for this.
Every single year. And the Innovation Sandbox, I love this area because these are the scrappy youngins that are coming up, and they have amazing technology, and they haven't hit their Series A or their Series B or their Series whatever. They're just here in a little tiny booth talking about what they have. Please do me a favor and go say hi to them. One of our friends, MetaCTF, is here, so check them out. So with that, I want to say thank you for your time, and I hope to see you in training next week. And with that, have a great conference, everybody.
Thank you so much.